Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Leveraging Social Capital to Elevate Your Business. I'm Markel Tolliver, the State of Illinois Liaison and Manager for the African American Business Community. I'm so happy that you have joined us today, and I want to start by thanking each of you for carving out special time to join this conversation. Today, we will explore how networking, authentic relationship building, and community collaboration are not just cliche terms, but crucial methods for business growth. We'll also uncover funding paths beyond traditional grants and loans. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. Due to DCEO's policy, we do not allow any AI assistance. So at this time, please remove all AI assistance, and if any DCEO staff see any AI tools, they will be removed. Additionally, this webinar will be recorded and made accessible after via our website and emails from the registration. Please use the chat box to submit questions during the conversation. At the end, our speakers will tackle them as time allows. Feel free to engage in the chat throughout the panel. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights. Now, let's meet our panelists who will be sharing their wisdom with us today, who we've brought from across the state of Illinois. First, we have Tricia Teague, founder of the Trep School. Next, we have Rowan Richards, Director of Business Coaching at Allies for Community Business. And next, we have Dominic Watson, President and CEO of the Springfield Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Without further ado, let's jump right into the conversation, and let's start with introductions. Let us know again your role in the organization, and then your location and any major services that you provide. We'll start with you, Ms. Tricia.
I am the founder and CEO of the Trep School. We provide quite a number of services. We have a couple of DCEO funded opportunities, one with the Digital Equity Capacity Kickstarter program, and another one with the Economic Empowerment Center, where we provide a number of programs. As a matter of fact, we have programming tonight on digital presence. It's a long name, but it's really about digital presence. So we're doing assessments and evaluations of digital presence tonight. So lots of educational programming. We created some partnerships which I'll get into relating to microloan programs. We also have a co-working space. So we provide space for startup businesses to do virtual mail, work out of, provide all type of office equipment, and we have offices available. And as an aside, we are also a CEJA navigator. We're a sub-grantee for our local Economic Development Corporation and Chamber of Commerce, doing the navigation for Vermilion County. So we are located in Danville, and we have also in the past, although not currently, been a technical assistance provider in the cannabis space with our CannaTrep Law and Business program.
Thank you for that information. Rowan?
Yes, thank you. So as mentioned, my name is Rowan Richards, and I'm the Director of Business Coaching at Allies for Community Business. I've been in that role for the past 8 years. Our organization is based in Chicago on the west side at Lake Kinkedzie in the East Garfield Park neighborhood. But we serve all of the state of Illinois and good portions of Indiana as well. What we primarily provide are loans, capital in the form of loans and grants, business coaching, which is the team that I lead, and that's one-on-one coaching, webinars, and accelerator programs in cohort format. And then also through our joint venture partnership with another organization, ICNC, we help provide kitchen space for our food and beverage entrepreneurs who are looking to start or scale their business. And then, of course, like my fellow panelists here, always looking to help make connections and to really encourage collaborative environments for business owners to grow.
Thank you. Dominic?
Hello, everyone. Dominic Watson, as mentioned. I am the president and CEO of the Springfield Project, as well as, and Springfield Project is the Community Development Corporation, as well as the Springfield Black Chamber of Commerce. And in my duties, I'm fortunate enough to oversee business and community development opportunities based out of Springfield, Illinois. And so we are funded by the state, as well as the federal government. We have a combination of both programmatic dollars as well as capital dollars. And so from a state standpoint, we are fortunate enough to receive a significant amount of investment from DCEO, one being the investment of the cultural district designation. So we oversee a cultural district right here in the heart of the east side of Springfield. We also have violence prevention dollars where we have a youth-focused entrepreneurship track, as well as a career and college readiness component. And then we're also fortunate enough to have a co-working space and innovation center where we help minority entrepreneurs in the Springfield area who are both in their infancy phase of entrepreneurship as well as their established business phase. And so we have 3 pockets of individuals that we focus on under that low to moderate income demographic. One being youth, the second being just those who are just generally facing challenges within the workforce. And then the third component is going to be those who are justice impacted. And we just launched a micro-lending program this year or this summer that we're servicing the community with. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for, again, your work and the impactful decision and connections that you guys are making. We know that this conversation is about social capital, those relationships and networks and connections that essentially open doors for Black business owners. So let's get into it. We'll start with you, Dominic, again. How has social capital played a role in your specific business journey, if you're an entrepreneur yourself, or the entrepreneurs that you support?
Well, I think from a standpoint of my entrepreneurial journey, which started, I'm going to cough when I say this, but nearly 20 years ago at this point, as a young man who recognized the need for entrepreneurship within the space of marketing and event promotion. And so, but it became very, very clear and transparent or apparent that there was a lack of support for minority entrepreneurs, even almost 20 years ago, right here in Springfield. And that hasn't changed present day. So my journey has been focused on, first and foremost, being that person that I didn't have as an entrepreneur when I started my business journey those years ago, but also creating a space where we could centralize resources that traditionally aren't located in our backyard, so to speak, but our service, or we're expected to take advantage of the services, even though they're not located in an accessible way. And so from the vantage point of where I sit, social capital has been everything. And also understanding the needs of the community and then leveraging the resources and the relationships that we have to bring resources back to the community. And so that's been my journey. Social capital is everything. We opened our doors as a innovation and co-working space 2.5 years ago. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of partners, including the city, the state, and then other partners who are boots on the ground.
Thank you for that. Rowan?
Yeah, happy to answer that as well. So yeah, in a similar way, I grew up in a small business household, so I got to witness it from really early on what that looks like, and then myself as an entrepreneur, but also in this position for an organization that supports entrepreneurs and at every stage, from early all the way through to established. There's some things that really stand out around like the need for social capital, and it is in itself a significant resource. It really is. I think there's no one thing that allows a business owner to be successful, right? So we know that actual financial dollars. Capital is critical. Education in like business acumen is important. But the relationships are huge. And a couple of things that for me have played out from what I've witnessed, I've experienced, and what I'd like to share with other people. It's like as you're thinking about building that social capital, think about what it is that you can help solve for other people. And that's in that other, it could be anything, right? It could be other business owners, community members, a lot of what the other panelists are already describing, who they're serving on a day-to-day basis. Like there's so much, there's a need and opportunity everywhere we look. And that's for ourselves and for other people who we come across on a day-to-day basis. So being able to be a known as a problem solver, a deliverer of solutions is one of the deepest and richest forms of social capital you could ever develop and earn. And that takes time, and it takes performance and consistency for sure. So just that willingness to to pick up the phone and to roll up your sleeves and do work that sometimes is maybe a step just outside of your core discipline, but not a distraction. I think is really important part of developing that sort of social capital that has weight and will carry on. And then second part to that, which is very similar, is just always be listening to needs and interests. You just don't ever know when you're gonna find that solution, that other person, the other side of that equation, where you can bring people together and really deliver on something that could have been weeks, months, years in the making. So those are kind of my two go-tos as I think about social capital and try to encourage people to just like think about how to develop it in the work that they're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rowan. Tricia, anything to add?
I think the only thing I would add to that is, what Rowan brought up, especially, is really about establishing your brand, right? And so I think that social capital and is one side of the coin and branding is the other side of the coin. And if you establish your brand as a problem solver, then that adds to your credibility, and helps you to create those lanes for yourself that then people know when you have the social capital, then people know I can come to this person to help me with this thing.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about that, panelists, what are some practical ways, some tangible ways that Black business owners could build and leverage their social networks for growth? Anyone can take a stab at that.
I'll jump in. I think that some real practical ways are, uh, making yourself available for opportunities, jumping in when you see opportunities, letting people know, the things that you're working on and the things that you're doing. And as an introvert myself, I struggle with this. Um, but it's really important to be able to put yourself out there and to step out. And it's really, a little bit of marketing, as well as that relationship building, um, whether that is, press releases, right? Just always being in front of people, or always putting stuff on your socials, but making sure that you're repeating that process and getting in front of people on a regular basis, so you become known for the things that they see you for.
And if I can add to that, I think the storytelling aspect of showing people who you are and your journey as an entrepreneur, I think really resonates. People always want to support a business where they know the owner is vested in their particular purpose or causes. And so the more you can tell your story, your journey, and the more you could directly contribute to various causes in the community, I think that will resonate with your customers.
Yeah, everything that was said for sure. People have to know what it is that you're doing, right? So that willingness to step out, share your story, describe what it is that you're doing, but also learning what people are struggling with, trying to figure out themselves. And I think we all can get a bit siloed sometimes in our work. And then also we can make assumptions that somebody has, just because they're doing really well on one thing, that they have everything else figured out. They don't know what you know, right? And I tell entrepreneurs all the time, like, you're the expert at that thing. And what you're doing might be exactly what somebody needs, but they'll never know if you don't share it and if you don't ask what it is that they're working on. So it takes a little of confidence. Sometimes we got to step outside of ourselves, as Tricia was mentioning, but absolutely everything that was shared.
Absolutely. And with that, let's look at some success stories. Can you share an example when you've worked with someone who has built that capital and that has led to a greater opportunity in whatever space, financially, marketing, event space, whatever the case may be, any success stories?
We've got several people, because we've done some cohort style classes, that have worked together to then grow together because their businesses are parallel. So, for example, I had one person who does healthy baked goods. She has a cottage food business. There's another person who is a graduate of a prior class who has a healthy food service. So you have this one person who's like, okay, I'm going to take my granola bars or my muffins over here and see if she wants to sell those in her store because she has a storefront. And I've seen actually the person who has the healthy baked goods. She's actually reached out to multiple businesses. She's in the country food store, which is another like health food store. She's at the farmers market. She actually is now also creating a system because she started doing deliveries. So then she created a system for all of the other businesses in the farmers market to tap into what she's doing with the deliveries. And so now people can order from multiple vendors in the farmers market, and she's delivering to people around the area, right? But it all started because she was starting first, she did her business herself, and then she created these relationships, and then she's leveraged those relationships to grow both her business and their business.
Yeah, I'd love to follow up on that, because I think that's where I've seen the evidence most. We've been fortunate. We work with thousands of business owners per year, and part of that work, where I get to really like dig in, is through our accelerator program. We're very hands-on, but we've seen that happen, both the collaborative nature within the cohort between business owners, but we also bring in individuals as advisors. And there's been multiple instances where an advisor, through the learning about this individual, not just about the business, but getting to know the person as a person, building that level of trust, and then willing to make a phone call on behalf of that person, which then leads to a contract. And then, of course, it's up to the business owner. They have to deliver. And that's when you see it all come together so lovely, is where the initial relationship started, the willingness to connect someone to a broader network, and then the entrepreneur running with it. And that's where we get to really come behind all parties and just support that sort of engagement and support. And that's where it really is really healthy. And it's encouraging. It's like, okay, if that's done one time or 10 times, it can be done 1,000 times and more. So yeah, that's probably the best example that we get to see year to year.
And for here in Springfield, and I love everything that was just said. We've tried to take a creative approach to providing industry specific events that, for instance, Springfield has a large Black restaurant population or groups, and so what we've done is we established Black Restaurant Weekend, and so we provided that platform for both culinary entrepreneurs who are minorities, as well as established Black-owned businesses, to actually take advantage of various services and market their service and even drive traffic to the restaurants. And then we also provided additional programming, whether it be marketing or customer service, to layer with that. That way, when the foot traffic picked up, they were ready for that size. And then we actually partnered them with the city of Springfield during the census, somewhere where they were collecting census, and we were able to get micro grants for every single restaurant tied to the census. And then, as a result, that continued for multiple years. And then you had restaurateurs who then joined together to establish businesses. You had culinary entrepreneurs who are now established food trucks or brick and mortars as a result of that.
Absolutely. Thank you all for those stories of success through collaboration and teamwork and building that social capital. We know that traditional funding isn't always accessible, especially for some Black entrepreneurs. So what are some alternative ways that people could actually go about finding funding?
I'll jump in on that for sure. I mean, I think there are lots of organizations and partners trying to solve for some of those gaps, yet those gaps still remain. This one set that, of course. I think we're all seeing it. But each of us that's on this panel sits in roles where we are testing, rolling out new initiatives to answer some of those, to meet some of those needs. I'll give an example of one we did recently with our revenue-based financing. This was years in development, and we launched it just under 2 years ago. But the thing we were trying to address is how do we provide more capital and longer runway to entrepreneurs that historically have not had access to capital that was sufficient to meet their need. And some of those barriers were, of course, valuation of assets, limited assets, credit challenges that come as a result of having to self-finance your business's launch and growth. And then it ends up being a negative in the process once your business revenues start to catch up. Is that these are things that we were seeing repeatedly. How do we address it? So we started with the goal in mind, worked backwards and said, okay, we have a chance to underwrite loans like this a bit different, still using many of the principles, but how do we make it a bit more flexible so that business owners will have a greater probability of receiving capital? And that's what we use to design something that is now providing loans significantly higher than anything we've ever been able to do in the past. I use that just as an example to say that, for business owners, continue to work with organizations that similar to what each of us are leading and others. So you can't stop looking for the right partners that are serving in your communities, in your industries, because there are people trying to find creative ways to do it. Outside of that, so coming to groups like ours, continuing to build your own social capital networks that sometimes can lead to private capital as well. I say that with the biggest, asterisk next to it. You have to be really diligent on who you're partnering with on that side. But as entrepreneurs, you're creative, so you have to find creative solutions as well. But it's part of the work, and it's the responsibility and opportunity of groups like ours to do the research, have the never-ending conversations so that you can develop and design products that are appropriate and can meet these gaps that exist, and they haven't been solved yet.
Absolutely. And to that point, Rowan, I want to keep us there a little bit. You talked about reaching out to different organizations. So I'm curious, is it possible to get grants and financial capital from all of these organizations and layer them for one project? And if so, how do we go about doing that?
Yes, it really comes down, it depends on what you're looking to do, but there are opportunities to do that sort of stacking of capital. Absolutely. And if, perfect example, we're here today because of the work that you're doing at the state. States is a great partner, different municipalities as well, who often have access to significant pools of capital that are then distributed through smaller agencies, smaller organizations. So I would say absolutely, depending on what you're looking for, what it is that you're looking to do, there's already collaboration in the works. We're working, where we are, a lot of our work is more in the Chicago area. So we're working with City of Chicago on some of funding related to build out with things like the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, where you're going to need both grant and loan capital and perhaps money from your own balance sheet as well. So thinking how do we put it all together to do the great work? Absolutely. I would never suggest anyone should rely on any one source. But find the dollars. They're there. They're not always easy to come by, but definitely worth the effort.
Absolutely.
And if I could just add to that, which I know will make you all happy in OE3, attend the OE3 monthly meetings about funding, right? I have received, I think, two grants as a result of becoming aware of them at OE3. One was it was the AARP Hispanic Chamber grant. This was a few years ago. You had to have an employee that was 50 plus who could go through some training and therefore get a promotion as a result of the training. So we used the grant for that. I had an employee who just turned 50 at that time. This was a couple years ago. And then there was another one that I had applied for and we didn't get, but then they brought it back around and they reached back out to us and said, okay, you didn't get it the last round, but we're offering it to you in this round. And it was something where, I had a specific project that I wanted to work on that was going to be a growth opportunity for the business. And so we applied that way. So I'm always telling people there's obviously a longer runway, right? Like you can't do the grant route for something that you want immediate, whereas you can do that with loan funds, right? But if you can get, 10,000, 5,000 to be able to get a piece of equipment or do something, else strategically in your organization, definitely go after those grant funds.
Yeah, and in the development world, we say, build your capital stack, right? And in order to do that, you have to know where you're going, right? So projecting where you want to go, how you want to scale even, and anticipate those. And then also, I think the most simplified way that you can have access to capital would be to know who's coming and patronizing you. You never know who you may be entertaining. And by communicating with your patrons or those who support you and saying, hey, we're looking to scale, we're looking to grow, if you're delivering the right product, people will start coming to you, those who are interested in investing. And again, that's not always something that happens right away, but you should very much so plan for those things to happen. And you have to be intentional in saying, hey, we're looking to grow. We're looking to have access to capital. And to Rowan's point earlier, in terms of not necessarily a point about this, but in terms of accessing organizations who have the relationships with bankers and institutions that are investing, I think that's absolutely important. Sometimes you have to assess your community and see what's available, and then be intentional about going to those various places.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dominic. And you actually touched on the next question. You guys talked about like marketing your sales, but how can Black business owners position themselves to attract funding, to attract investors that have the capital and access to capital?
Well, I think we touched on the most impactful way that minority business owners can get the word out there about their business is to tell their story. And a part of that is, again, getting in front of your customers, utilizing cost-effective marketing platforms, social media for one. We all have a phone, so we can hop on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and other platforms to tell the story. Earned media and unearned media also. I think we're not in a heavy media area here in Springfield, but I know that in other areas, media is huge, specifically in Chicago or Metro East. People still look at that print or visual media in a way that's not in front of their mobile device. And so I think starting there, we all know that historically, Black businesses have been the backbones of our communities and various movements. So I think that just knowing that you're a minority business owner and marketing that is powerful in itself. And I think there's always a story in that. And so how can you leverage in telling your story and telling your story to to a wider audience.
Can I chime in on that?
Yes.
I think one of the other big things that we have to do is be prepared for those financial conversations and those business conversations, right? So if somebody were to ask you, what would you do with the money? You know exactly what you would do with the money. So, because you already thinking strategically 6, 12, 24 months ahead, or you're thinking about the next big move, whenever that is, and you're just being prepared for it. So, when you're having those financial conversations, like it's one thing to say we need to market ourselves, and I agree with Dominic, because we definitely do. But I also think that sometimes, especially with Black business owners, we spend a lot of time on the marketing ourselves, but not enough time talking about the business strategy and the growth strategies. And when you say, well, if I got $10,000, I'm going to get this piece of equipment, it's going to have this ROI, and it's going to help me do this, which will then help me bring in this much additional income. That's when the person says, okay, I know that you know what you're doing and you're going to be a good investment. And then they'll feel more comfortable with taking a deeper dive into the numbers with you, looking under the hood and seeing where you're going. And if you can basically lay down that path for them, the rest of it is easy. Like, that's one of the things, if you ever watch Shark Tank and like pitch contests, like that's what makes a difference.
Very, very, very good point. Very good point. Anything to add, Rowan?
Yeah, no, this is great. I could sit here and listen to this myself. This is really incredible insights and laying out a great blueprint for business at all stages. And I think that is critical. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said fully. In my work, where I spend a lot of time with business owners, it is around, hey, plan well. Like, it's always be planning, right? Have a plan, continue to adjust plans, like do that. You know, build a plan that you need for that time in your business. If you're just getting started, right, build the right plan to get that thing piloted. Let's see if you have proof of concept, right? And then we'll continue to iterate and make it better. But build a really good plan, know your numbers for sure, right? And then continue to be out there and meet the needs of your customers. Like, grow a great business is really where I'm getting to. Like, that's still your number one thing that you have to do. And obviously there's stages where you're like, all right, I've grown to this point. And that's usually the point where you now need to probably go find capital. And they're going to want to know, what have you done so far? And you're going to be able to tell that story, but also show the financial evidence that you've done well up to this point. And the only other thing I would add is, for someone who is, especially for that person who's on the call right now, who's employed, thinking about stepping out and doing their own thing, like, be ready to be your first investor. Like, you have to invest in your business. I don't care what size. It doesn't mean it has to be a lot of money, but you have to be the first investor in your own business. That's going to go a long way. It's going to give you the ability to get started and to get that proof of concept, and then have a track record that you can take to a lender of any sort. Grants are great. If you can get them, get them. Go get it. I tell girls, go get the grant if you can. They're not always there. And investors sometimes are the right direction, but not always. Majority of people who are finding capital are investing from themselves, people they know, or going to a lender at some level or structure. And for lenders, they're looking at what are the numbers telling me, right? The numbers and the plan will dictate everything.
Can I add the investment piece, investing in yourself? That may not look like taking a salary. That investment may be you not taking a salary for the life of your early stage or front end of your business. So that investment doesn't have to mean I'm putting up X amount of dollars up front. It could be working in the business, or having your family or those who have a passion for your success contributing to your business in a way where nobody's getting paid until the business gets to a level where it's generating revenue.
Very, very good point. Very good point. So the conversation so far has been social capital, marketing, and networking, avenues for financial capital. But now what all of you have touched on was technical assistance. And that is another issue, another roadblock. In your experience, how does technical assistance influence long-term sustainability and scalability?
Yeah, if
Can
I
I
go ahead, no,
go ahead,
please,
go.
please.
One of the most important things that we see, because there's a lot of technical assistance that's available now, present day, right? I think Tricia mentioned that she had quite a few programs. I know Rowan has programs. We have programs, and oftentimes what I'm seeing is when, as an entrepreneur, you're coming in and you're taking advantage of these programs, you may not be listening to the technical assistance that we're trying to provide to you and executing on that. I have a perfect example of a cottage kitchen entrepreneur who had an opportunity to open a restaurant in a space, and she was so focused on purchasing the building, and she had the business, the owner of the property, literally reaching out to her saying, "Hey, you can buy it, do whatever you want." And here was a building that she could have rented, and establish her cottage kitchen in a brick and mortar to scale. And she wouldn't get away from the fact that she wanted to own the building right now. I have other examples, but I won't talk about those. But again, if there's technical assistance that's available, take advantage of it. Listen to those subject matter experts who are providing that coaching or that technical assistance. That way, because we contributed, we are completely 100% invested in your success, right? Our funding depends on it. We've committed our professional lives to it, so we're here for you, right? So listen.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's everything I was going to say right there. For sure. You have to be hungry to learn. Like it doesn't end. And I think it's important to know where you're getting that technical assistance, right? So check the resume of there's a lot of information. To Dominic's point, there's more information now, and that'll only continue to increase. So just checking the source, I think, is important. But there are plenty of great places to go. No shortage of locations, partners, organizations who are delivering excellent programming, big and small, on size of the organization. So I think take advantage of it. Be hungry, listen, be willing to do it on specific. I mean, I think there's industry specific technologies you need to have to be great in your work. And I think in a general basis, know your numbers. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, that's the last thing they want to do. They're creative. They want to build something. They love telling the story and they're really good at it. They don't want to talk about their numbers. And we're like, you have to know your numbers. You're making decisions based on your financials. And also, when you're going to tell that full story, somebody's going to ask you about your financials. You have to be able to explain how much things cost, how much you're charging, your bottom line, all of those details. So I think that general financial technical assistance is critical, and everyone needs to spend time there.
Rowan touched on the thing that I was already going to add. That's why I was snapping my fingers. Only thing I'm going to add, I was laughing because I have said to students before that don't be out here embarrassing me, acting like I didn't teach you anything. Like, please, remember, hear me in your head telling you the stuff that I always said in class. So they were both spot on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to that point, how do we find these technical assistance programs, organizations? What's some advice for us to find these?
Well, I think the organizations that are operating at a high level will find you, or will reach you in some type of capacity, or market their services to the community in an effective way. But that, going back to the point about intentionality, right? If you know that you're a business owner, you should be leaving no stone unturned in your journey of entrepreneurship and scaling and getting to the next level, almost to a point where you're obsessive about it. You got to put in your 10,000 hours, so to speak. And so from a vantage point of entrepreneurship, you should be aggressively seeking out mentors, those business coaches who may have brick and mortars, or even SBDC or your local TREP or Allied for Community Businesses, Springfield Project, Cap 1908, like all of these resources that people are talking about. And the simplest thing you could do is ask your fellow entrepreneur, who's either where you're at or progressed a little bit. Hey, who did you go see? So simplifying it a little bit, but be intentional.
I'll just add, go to the DCEO website. If you're in the state of Illinois, they have a list of everybody who's providing TA already on the website. And a lot of times, a list of all of the programs that are coming up. And then I would say, to add to what was already said, for your industry, go to industry associations so that you can get some technical assistance specifically for your industry, because we are generalists. We're not experts in any specific industry most of the time. So there are things that I can tell you that I know about from a general perspective, but when you start getting into very specific and niche industries, some of the best assistance you're going to get is going to be from that association or books associated with that type of business. I'm also a big believer in finding books. There's plenty of business books out there. Finding books to educate yourself on a specific topic, especially if it's something that you have a weakness in. We have an entrepreneur's library here at TREP, but a lot of that is because I'm like, okay, what do I need to listen to now? So every single book that we have is one that I've already listened to, so that I could pass on to other people and tell them why it's good and why they need it.
Absolutely. Anything from you, Rowan?
I think it was well covered. Absolutely well covered. Thank you for it.
As we close this conversation, one last question for you all, for those that are listening, for the business owners. What's one thing that you guys would give them as a piece of advice that they could do within the next 6 months to elevate their business? If someone's on this call looking to elevate in the next 6 months, what is a piece of tangible advice that you would give to them?
I got a couple top of mind. I touched on that already. Like, let's get in those books. If you don't have a proper system right now, let's get you a bookkeeping system. And something is better than nothing. I do think you should take advantage of some of the software that exists that can take a lot of the work away from it. And again, if you're not sure how to do it, there are tons of resources where you can learn how to do better bookkeeping. And there are people who this is what they do for a profession. And the other thing I'd say, regardless of what stage you're in, if you haven't done this yet, write down your operations. How do you do what you do? A to Z. It could be simple. You can write it, you could record it, you can make a video of it. It doesn't matter. As long as you document it, because from there you can build processes, training manuals, a variety of things. But take all that knowledge that's in your head, document it, and it's going to help you run your business more efficiently.
Dom, you want to go? Or you want me to go next? Okay. I'm going to add to that, systematize. Your business can operate at a level beyond what should be your capacity if you actually create systems around what you do. And so, shameless plug, we have an IT optimization workshop in 2 weeks on the 10th. But that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at, is helping people to systematize their business, because there are lots of people who use old school methodology for things when there are new systems available for those things. So I'll give you an example. Plumbers, for example, because I've seen this happen, where I have a plumber come to the house and then they got a person back at the office who sends a paper invoice in snail mail for me to pay, versus, let me get your number and send you a link right now. And then they get paid right away, right? So it's quicker, it's easier, it's more efficient, it helps with cash flow. those types of things help. We have tons of systems around here. We don't function without them. And we function as if this is a 15-person operation when we only really right now have 6 people. But back when we had 2, we were running like a well-oiled machine because of systems. And you have to stick to the system and not let people go around your systems. So that would be my piece of advice. Create systems, make sure that they work, test them out, and don't ever deviate from them, no matter who the person is. Even if it's your mother, they got to stick in the system.
Absolutely.
So my biggest thing, I have a few, right? But probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn, I'll lead with this, is if I'm the only person that knows how to run my business, then how successful am I going to be, right? And again, this is for all the visionaries out there who are entrepreneurs, right? Because I think oftentimes, as visionaries, we have the idea, we may birth the idea and then jump to the next idea, right? Without educating those who are supporting that idea on how to, again, continue to nurture that, and so the second one that I really want to drive home, and this, I think there's a challenge to this and understanding it, because I think oftentimes we don't plan for the tail end, right? And so you have to know what your end game or end goal is, and then kind of work backwards, right? You have to, in order to know where, in order to be successful in the moment, you have to know where you're going, right? I'm a firm believer in that. So work on your exit plan now, right? Or at least have an idea of what your exit plan is. And by exit plan, I mean, it could be selling your business, it could be succession planning, it could be all those things, right? Because you will wake up as an entrepreneur one day and say, you know what, I'm tired of this. I want to go in, if you're successful enough, buy island, or or something like that, right? So you want to, again, know where you want to go and then work backwards, and then also be intentional in that journey and getting you there.
Wow. Thank you all so much for this insight, and tangible items for our Black business owners and entrepreneurs to actually take with them. Any last thoughts, any last thing from you all before we move over to question and answers for the next 10 minutes? Well, sounds good. We'll go right into Q&A. Some of the attendees, Tricia, loved the story of bringing the farmers together and the collaboration of them. I will be reaching out to you, Angel, personally in regards to your request. The site that Tricia referred to is DCEO site. I will be sure to add that in the recap email for all of those who missed that as well. Also, people are letting us know that they will be sharing this information to some of their classes and business owners as well. 2 questions for you, Rowan. Number 1, you mentioned commercial kitchens. What is the commercial kitchen your program is working with? And number 2, can you explain the Neighborhood Capital Fund?
Yeah, happy to. So we're part of this joint venture. So we actually built a physical space in East Garfield Park at Lake Kinkezi. It's called the Hatchery. And within the space, there's a large shared kitchen where people can rent by the hour based on their needs. And then as they continue to mature, there's private kitchens that are just down the hallway. And there's 56 of those kitchens that people can rent and occupy at different sizes. And as I mentioned, it's a variety of business types that are falling into that food and beverage category. And happy to follow up after this call with information on that, Markel, if that's helpful. And then second, for the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, which I believe that's what the attendee was referring to. And if so, that is a grant fund. For us, it's a Chicago project. And I will just say, I would encourage people to check your local municipalities to see if something similar exists. And this is specifically designed for businesses and people who are managing cultural projects in Chicago's Southwest, West Side, South Side, commercial corridors, can receive grants up to $250,000, in which the city, through this NOF program, will reimburse up to 75% of the costs for an eligible project. So it's, again, a reimbursable type program. And then business owners would then still need to find the other 25% of the project, either through savings and loans, or loans alone. And we actually just started providing some of that, the loans towards that program through the extended partnership that we have with the city of Chicago now. But again, if you're not in Chicago, I encourage everyone to try to find something similar if that doesn't exist. If you have in mind to build out a facility that your business needs at this time.
Markel, if I may, just a shameless plug to first DCO, as well as the Springfield Project and the Springfield Black Chamber. Through the Rebuild Downtown and Main Street grant, we've been fortunate enough to be recipients of a grant that funds our shared kitchen and culinary incubator space that will be starting construction on early next year. And so if anyone is in the Springfield area who is interested in culinary entrepreneurship or shared kitchen access, feel free to reach out. We're located again at Cap 1908 at 1100 South Grant Avenue East, right in the heart of the East Side. And we're fortunate enough again to be a partner of DCO in making that happen.
Absolutely, Dominic, absolutely. Those are all the questions that are in the chat. I'll wait a couple more minutes. But again, panelists, thank you all so much for this insight, for the tangible resources, as well as just the work that you guys are doing in the community and in the state of Illinois. To our attendees and business owners who have joined us, keep building your networks, keep seeking partnerships, and don't be afraid to take a bet on yourself. Thank you all for joining us today for the conversation in celebration of Black Business Month. We will be sure to give all of you all a recap email and contact information from our panelists after today. Again, thank you all, and happy National Black Business Month.